right, welcome to the Comics Multiverse. Today we are talking with award-winning UK-based cartoonist and comedy writer Andy Riley about his new book, Action Dude. He has also done some other stuff you might have heard of, like Veep and other stuff. But we'll all find out about that and this book. So let me bring him in and let's find about see what's going on with him. Hey Andy, how's it going?
All right. Hello, Chad.
So, before we get talking about the book and your other work, tell us a little about yourself, about what you do, and if you have a history with comics, then kind of
Yeah,
where that fits into your life.
I'm a script writer and a cartoonist, and a children's author. I can never quite decide. Also, I write scripts for TV and film, so I kind of pinball between all these different things because I want to do all of them. I can never decide. And I've been doing cartoons kind of for at least part of my living for quite a while. In the 2000s, I had some books which are very successful around the world. The first one was called The Book of Bunny Suicides. And it was a lot of rabbits killing themselves. Did three of those, and yeah, I don't know if I could get that published now. I'll be frank with you, and I've done quite a lot of cartoon books since, and now I'm the Action Dude. That one though is my first one that I think I can call a graphic novel.
Mm.
The drawing style is quite simple because it's not the sort of I'm not like doing very detailed musculature. I'm not that good at that. I mean, what I think my style does lend itself to is little potato figures without noses. I'm quite good at getting expressions out of little potatoes, and so if in the end you need to work out what you're good at. And I'm better at that than at detailed work. If I put my serious drawings on Instagram, no one cares, but they like the cartoon more.
And so, did comics or cartoon strips play an important part of when you were growing up for you?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And there were some really violent ones in Britain in when I was a kid that really directly inspired these ones. There was a character called Hookjaw, who was a shark who was it was kind of a rip-off of Jaws, only the shark was the hero, and he had a harpoon sticking out of his jaw, and that's why he was called Hookjaw. Look this up online. If you put in Hookjaw, you'll get the pictures for that. Incredibly gruesome cartoons, just for like quite young kids. So that kind of entered my head and never got out of it. So I kind of like to work in the sort of action adventure genre where I can. I've written quite a few animated films. I co-wrote Romeo and Juliet, and I recently have done a rewrite on an action film, a serious action film actually, that I can't quite tell you what it is yet. So
Sure.
that's somewhere where I always kind of head. And the actual character of Action Dude was because it was the lockdowns, and all my TV work had just evaporated because a lot of people's TV writing work evaporated because no one was filming anything. And so to fill some time, I think it's the iPhone version of Procreate, the drawing software. And trying to draw with your finger on your iPhone, you can't really do very much. So I drew this little potato-shaped character, really two potatoes with just little lines for arms and legs. Decided he looked a little bit like the actor Jason Statham. And I did a tweet saying with one picture of this little potato guy, just 10 lines it was drawn with, saying one like equals one drawing of Jason Statham doing something. And so it got a few dozen tweets and a few dozen sort of likes, and so I started doing this because I had the day free. Edgar Wright, the director, I know him a little bit from years back. I used to work with him at one time, and he retweeted it, and I think by the end of that day it had about 10,000 likes. So I thought, well, I'm just not going to be able to physically do 10,000 pictures of Jason Statham doing this. So I kind of went back on my promise, but I did do about 120, and by the time I
Mhm.
did 120, I thought, oh, I've got something here. I've got something here. Maybe this is a children's character. What if he's not Jason Statham, but a kid who wants to be Jason Statham? And that's how I got through my enjoyment of Jason Statham films and drawing cartoons during COVID.
So, kind of give us the rundown about what Action Dude is about.
Yeah, it's a graphic novel. It's kind of aimed between the age group of about 5 and about 11, but there's lots of jokes in there for the grown-ups too, you know. And it's about a boy who doesn't have any super skills or superpowers, but just sheer belief that he is an action hero, to the point where he's changed his name to Action Dude. So his first name is Action, his second name is Dude. And he's convinced, despite all evidence to the contrary, that he is a great action hero. Just willpower takes him through. And in this first book, because I've now just finished the third one in the UK, it's sort of like a cross between Jurassic Park and Westworld. There's an amusement park where all the robots have gone haywire, and the guests are hiding inside a volcano, a fake volcano. And so Action Dude has to go in and save the day, much to the annoyance of the local police, because they don't like a 9-year-old boy going in and doing this stuff. But the city relies on him when the police get into trouble. He has a very fractious relationship with the local chief of police. But there's a long history of that in action films. I mean, that's what Die Hard is, isn't it? I mean, the cops don't much like John McClane at the start of any Die Hard film. And by the end, they know that he's actually the guy they needed.
Yeah. So you said that you're on you released volume 3 over there across the
I've
pond.
just finished drawing it. There's two out. So the second one is called Holiday on the Moon. So that is takes place on a moon base with aliens versus billionaires trying to start a space war. And so Action Dude has to insert himself in the middle and stop a space war. My favorite sequence in that has him clinging to the outside of a rocket. The great thing about doing these books compared to my other work of TV and film is that I don't really need to worry about the budget very much. You know, if I can draw a moon base, which I can, it's easier to draw a moon base than it is to draw like a city street. Then I can have a moon base. And when I'm doing films, I just need to think about how many actors are being hired on that day and that kind of thing. With cartoons, anything you can imagine and draw is there. And the third one is about a massive shark. It's called Action Dude and the Massive Shark. So you see, I do like sharks.
and another Jason Statham callback.
Yeah. Well, yes. I mean, I do really like the Meg. And I haven't yet seen the Meg 2 because I was going to wait until I finished fully the book, which I think I've now just done my very last changes to it yesterday. So now I can watch the Meg 2. That's my reward for getting it done.
Well, I won't spoil it for you then, because I've read the book and then I watched the film, and I know the first one isn't much like the original book, but so. But
right.
So other than
Action Dude is much more kind of self-consciously comedy than that, really. It's comedy action.
Well, I mean, I even looking at the first page, I even got like with you being British, I got like a little bit of Doctor Hugh humor out of when he goes first name Action, last name Dude. I kind of the Matt Smith kind of doctor.
Oh, I see.
Personality there.
Yeah, a bit of that. Maybe.
So,
the more comedy
are there?
Doctor.
Yeah. So, are there any other? Who are the other characters in the book as his supporting cast?
Well, in the first one, there's his friend Ruby, who's a girl of about the same age, and there's the characters I'm really, really interested in are the grown-up characters that just have to deal with this kid. So there is the mayor of the town, who is very, very indulgent. And this is, and so I kind of realized early on that I had to have a grown-up character that just lets him have things. because what you really want with an action character, you want them to end up on speedboats and falling out of planes and stuff. So the mayor keeps going, "Oh, go on then, go on. You can have a plane and jump out of the plane." And Police Chief Nina is really doesn't like Action Dude, and he's always going, "Why? He's a child. He's a child." He's saying the things a real grown-up would do if a mayor was sending a 9-year-old into dangerous situations. Going, "What are you doing? This is nuts." He's a kid. Look, we're the police. We've got trucks. We've got riot shields. We've got all the equipment, and you're sending a kid in. This is bonkers. So she's kind of my favorite character in it because I just think it's, you know, she's the very opposite of Action Dude in a way. Likes things done by the book. Responsible.
Kind of grounds him.
Responsible and grown up. And you know, by the end, of course, they've got to work together. It's not the first story in the action genre where that happens.
So, kind of with your other works, how is it like? I mean, I the bunny suicides you have here on one side, and then you have the Action Dude, which is a very kid friendly book.
Yeah.
How is it kind of? I know you did bunny suicides years ago, but how that what I guess what I'm trying to say is that there's a big spectrum there.
There is. Although weirdly, over the years, it's the audience of the bunny suicide changed because they kind of consistently sold for about 10 or 12 years in different countries at different times. And first of all, they were just for grown-ups, and then I started getting letters from teenagers, and then I started getting letters from kids, and I thought, no, you shouldn't be looking at that. You shouldn't be looking at that. So I became a children's author just by default. You know, it just happened. And also, I do try and keep that separate though, because it's got that word in it. I don't want that on the Action Dude books. So
right, yeah.
my resume in the Action Dudes book is my child-friendly one. It's also got my family-friendly TV and film credits. So it's got things like Romeo and Juliet in it and Horrible Histories, which is a big deal in Britain. And I don't keep the more grown-up stuff in it. So, for example, Veep. I wrote on the third and fourth series of Veep. The fourth series is the one that got the Emmy, so I've got a nice Emmy on the shelf for that. But that I don't mention in the book because that's full of swearing. It's full of cussing and swearing and stuff that the children don't want. So that doesn't go in the books either. So I've got these two different resumes for two different things. But
it just shows how versatile you are as a writer.
Yeah, or just that I haven't really grown up correctly. But my process for them is all the same, really. It's still trying to have ideas that are trying to amuse people. You just scale it. You scale the rudeness up and down, depending on who you're doing it to. I think the one thing I'll never quite be able to do is YA. I don't know why. It's just I think as a person, I went straight from being 8 to like about 17. You know, I mean, I know I can get the 8-year-old me very easily when I think about it, but the 13-year-old me, I can't put myself into that mindset. So I will say now, I will never do YA book, and that will make me do a YA book. You know, if I draw a line in the sand, I always want to walk across it.
Yeah.
So I'm talking myself into doing it now as I talk to you.
You are, yeah. Well, when you do that, we'll have you back.
Oh, good. Yeah.
So, you've kind of already discussed about, the difference between writing for film, TV, and a book. Is there anything else you kind of have to consider when, for when you were writing like Action Dude? Was there things that you drew upon from that part of your work into this?
Oh yeah, because I don't think I'd have been able to do Action Dude if I hadn't written film scripts before, because because he is a character who really sees himself through all of the bold action heroes, right? I mean, look at me. I basically look like Action Dude if I take the glasses off. I'm a bit older, but you know, I've got a bald head and a potato-shaped head. So he loves Dwayne Johnson. He loves Vin Diesel. He loves anyone, any bald guy who does some action that he really likes. So, but because he thinks of himself as an action movie hero, the films follow an action structure and a movie structure. So, you know, Of got the 3 acts. I've got like an ordeal in the middle. I've got Refusing the Call to Adventure. I've got A Long Dark Night of the Soul. All of those things that go into a film, I've kind of boiled down a bit into this. The other consideration I had to have was how many lines are in it, because I've got like a lot of jobs. And also I can't physically draw full time. I had an RSI problem about 14 years ago. I don't want to go back into that hole. So I draw now in a different way. I draw looser. I use the tablet more, so I don't have to draw tiny things, because with the tablet, of course, you can scale it up.
Yeah.
So I can draw bigger sweeps, and that's good. But if I'm scared of having to draw too many lines. So I devised character designs, which were simple, and the arms I could just do with little, little twigs. And I thought, great, I can draw this quite quickly. And what I hadn't factored in was the colouring in. Because suddenly I thought the colouring going to be simple. I'll just keep it fairly flat and fairly simple. By the 3rd book, I'm doing loads of blur effects. I'm like having like shading out white areas, and I'm against my own first instincts. I'm discovering how to use Photoshop much better, which I kind of eschewed Photoshop for years, and I thought, no, I'm a pen and ink guy. And now I'm kind of quite digital these days. It took me a long time, but I'm getting there.
No, how long did it take you to put together the first book of Action Dude?
Oh, I couldn't tell you. But the 3rd one, because I did the first chapter, wrote the first chapter, and then just wrote and drew the first chapter, and then just wrote an outline for what the rest of the book would be. Luckily, I managed to sell it on the first chapter, on the strength. But the 3rd one, I started doing nearly a year ago, sort of planning out the story. And then over the summer, I was doing the roughs, which is the hardest part. And then I did the actual finished artwork in the autumn, but I was doing that alongside loads of other jobs. So I was never full time on it. And I don't know, I've never added up how many days it is. I don't worry about that too much. So long as I can get it done by the deadline, which I did just manage to do.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
You want to do
too many things. I wouldn't want to be only someone that drew. When I was a teenager, I did, and I thought, oh, okay, all I want to be is a cartoonist. That's what I want to be when I grow up. That's all I want to do. And being a cartoonist is fine. The trouble is that your days are often quite similar. You go onto your drawing board and you start drawing.
Yeah.
You have a break for lunch, and aside from the fact that it mangles your body up a little bit, because no one's body is built to have one arm out for your entire lifetime, you know. So you have to watch that. It's a bit low on anecdotes. There aren't so many kind of crazy things that happen. And there's a movie that I shot. There's actually coming out in Britain and Ireland next week that I wrote. It's called Seize Them. It's a medieval comedy. Hope it gets a US release soon, and that's for grown-ups. And there was a day on that where, because I was an executive producer on it as well, and I went to all the shooting days, and I ended up doing drone shots because the main director was working with the main actors, and I was working with stand-ins, just getting like big landscape shots in Wales on this hillside. And some wild horses were in shot. Now, for various plot reasons, there are no horses in the movie. So I knew that they could be removed in post-production in the computer, but that's expensive and it's not a high budget film. Much easier if I just run screaming at the horses and herd them away. So the cartooning's great, but you don't end up in mad situations like running screaming at horses, where you've got At the end of the day, something a little bit crazy happened to you. And writing film and TV is much more social like that, and it gets you out of the chair quite a lot more. So that's what I like. But I love the control freakery of cartoons. I love the fact that you can do everything. It's great for people who want to control every darn thing. You can't do that in film or something, because you've got actors, and they involve themselves. Loads of craft departments involve themselves. But for Action Dude, I'm the director. I'm all the actors. I'm the editor, the designer. I grade the film. I'm everything, as well as being the writer. And I like the control freakery. I think all cartoonists don't they? Don't you think?
I think so. I don't know. I couldn't even draw Action Dude, so.
Oh well, you see, that's. Oh no, you could. I've done like sessions with kids in schools and at book festivals where I get them all drawing Action Dude, and anyone can draw an Action Dude, not perfectly, but you don't need. I can't draw it perfectly, but I really wanted to do a character that children could copy. My previous range of books, called for children, called the King Flashy Pants series, which are kind of medievally as well, but for kids. And I had characters which were very much in my drawing style, but kids couldn't copy them. And I thought, wouldn't it be fun to have a character that young artists could say, "Oh, I could do that." I think there's a certain power to that. So it's not just to save time that I made him simple.
No, I totally get that.
Also, to try and say and it's easy in these sessions to go, look, any of you can draw Action Dude, and so far no one has failed to. So I put it to you that you can. If you can draw a potato.
Before we, they're asking a lot of me. So, but before we get into 5 questions, I just want to say that my 7-year-old, who is currently into Captain Underpants, saw the book that I had sitting on the table, goes, "What's this?" and starts looking through it. And I said,
"Oh, good,
yes, you can read that.
We like that."
So it definitely caught his attention. So I'm sure, it does have that appeal that you were talking about to both older people, kids first, and young people too, as you kind of intended it to be.
Well, you know yourself as the father of a 7-year-old, and possibly someone of another age, but definitely a 7-year-old. You've done your share of reading books to children. And of course, that's one of the things that got me into it, because my kids were, they're 17 and 19 now. They don't want me to read to them. But when they are of that reading to age, there are books that bore you as a grown-up. And you think, oh, I can't believe I'm reading this one again. And there's other books which you yourself look forward to. And you really look forward to just reading that book to them at that time of day. The ones where you want to do the voices,
Mm-hmm.
Do you do the voices if you're reading a book to your kids?
I only have the one, but when he was younger, he used to like the voices. Now he's kind of in that in between age where it's I'm trying to introduce him to stuff, other books. Like we tried reading. I tried getting him in. He's kind of into Harry Potter, really into Harry Potter right now. We've read the first 2 books. We started the 3rd books, but he's seen the first 5 movies.
Yeah.
So we're working. We're going to work our way through the books too. Then I tried to get him, because I remember being brought up on the Chronicles of Narnia and really liking those. I want to have him read those, and when he's older, we'll get him into Tolkien and.
Yes. I should give Lord of the Rings another go. I've read The Hobbit as a kid, which I liked.
Mm-hmm.
And I read about 4 pages of Lord of the Rings once, and I thought, what's this nonsense? I thought, this isn't for me. And then when the films came out and I saw the first film, I thought, wow, this is a brilliant story. I should go back into it. It's been a while since the films. I should get around to it.
I made it through. I made it through The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings book, and It took me a year, but I made it through the Silmarillion on audiobook.
Oh, well, isn't the Silmarillion just sort of some stuff that was cobbled together after he died?
It's like,
It's
well,
leftovers.
a lot of it is like history of Middle Earth and
Yeah,
all that.
it's probably not the one to
So
start on, is it?
no, it's no. Trust me, I think I tried actually reading the book, and when it, then when he goes into like the history, of the elf family or whatever, it's like done.
Yeah, well, for some people it'll be their favorite one.
But with the audiobook, you can just kind of listen to it, and
Yeah, I don't think I'll
then
ever
you can
get
say
around to
you've done
it.
it. So let's play 5 questions if you have the
Right,
time.
most definitely.
Okay, first question. Besides Jason Statham, who are your other top 4 action heroes?
Oh, let's see. Buster Keaton, probably. I mean, the stunts in Buster Keaton films are still staggering even now. So I think you've sort of got to count him as an action hero, to be honest.
Mhm.
The sort of jumps he can do. Um, uh, I think I've got to say Schwarzenegger, because
Mhm.
I was just obsessed with Arnold Schwarzenegger between the ages of about, I don't know, 17 and 22. I thought he was absolutely fantastic. And then the trouble is that people started bringing in martial arts into action films, and as far as I know, Schwarzenegger can't kick anything. In his prime, he looked fantastic, but I don't think he can kick at the level of his head. I really don't think so.
Yeah.
But also, just for presence, Schwarzenegger. I once read a little bit of I think it was a sort of autobiography, and it had his rules of action acting, which are really good for action acting.
Mhm.
One of them is that an action hero never jogs. He never kind of, runs along lightly. He either walks or he sprints, because walking looks cool and strong. Sprinting looks cool and strong. You never, ever, ever do the in-between bit.
Mhm.
Another one is an action hero never looks at his weapon while he's reloading it. He's always looks at the thing he's going to shoot at, because someone who's
Mhm.
like doing this, right? That's all right in a certain kind of film, but it's not good for Schwarzenegger. He's got to do it all down here while he's looking over there, and then pull up the shotgun. So he's got to learn
Mhm.
how to do that, and also you have to fire so many rounds on a practice range that you don't blink. And now they can fix blinking in post, but not in his day. So he
Yeah.
just had to. The natural instinct is to blink when you hear something as loud as a gunshot. So no blinking, only sprinting and walking, and learn to reload without looking at it. And you think, yeah, that's a pretty good blueprint for being an action hero. Okay, that's a
Okay.
few. Anyway, that's some favorites,
All right. Okay.
but mostly Jason Statham, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's the governor.
So, question number 2. What writers, and they can be from any, you know, genre, have had an influence on your writing, be it in the movies or, with the cartoon or action dude.
I'd say in book form, uh, certainly for jokes and funniness, my 2 favorite, I think the funniest books on earth for me, are The Third Policeman by Flann O'Brien, which is a mesmerizingly strange book that Flann O'Brien, the Irish author, did. He wrote it, I think, in the 40s, and then claimed he'd lost it. And it was discovered in his papers after he died. Because one publisher had turned it down, and then he got the hump and thought, I'm not giving this to the world. But it's his masterpiece. It's a stunning book. It's full of philosophy and weirdness and absolute. It's one of the craziest books, and also, but that's an extremely Irish book.
Mhm.
An extremely British book which isn't really known very much outside Britain, but is a comedy touchstone even now, 120 years later or something, is a book called Three Men in a Boat by Jerome K. Jerome, in which three men get in a boat and go for a trip along the Thames River. And that's it. There's no jeopardy. The adventures that they have are tiny. But somehow, even though it's so old, the comedy still works. So I would say those two.
Okay.
Films. For films, I mean, Bridesmaids, I think, probably the funniest film I can think of. I still love Bridesmaids. It's still a big touchstone for my writing, Bridesmaids.
Okay. I think we're on question number 3. I'm not very good at counting, so
I'm not keeping count. I mean, you can just keep going. I don't think I'm gonna go back to script writing today. I've had enough of it. So keep going.
All right. Question 3. Is there maybe a character, a comics book character, or even, property out there that you would kind of like to, have a chance of writing, like a superhero from Marvel,
God.
DC, or a property like, I don't know, even like a TV property.
Now you say this. Now that you said Marvel, right? My knowledge of Marvel comics as a kid was mostly through the fact that, because I was born in 1970, right? So I was old enough to see Star Wars when it came out and be completely mesmerized. It was a life. I was part of that, the younger end of that cohort of kids where it was a life-changing event. As soon as that big spaceship came over your head, you were there. So I got Star Wars Weekly as my weekly comic, and it was a Marvel title. It was Star Wars Weekly. So they'd fill up the back with weird Marvel characters. There was Adam Warlock for a while, and Tales of the Watcher. And that's how I knew about Thanos, was from that. So when Thanos turned up in the films, I thought, oh yeah, Star Wars Weekly. But there was one character that I've never really come across outside of the back of Star Wars Weekly called Deathlock the Demolisher.
Yeah.
And Deathlock is, well, obviously you know about Deathlock. Deathlock, for those that don't know, is this cyborg guy who I think he's like kind of like the Bionic Man, but a more dark take on the 70s idea of the Bionic Man, where Steve Austin, the Bionic Man in the TV series played by Lee Majors, is kind of handsome and cool. Whereas Deathlock the Demolisher, who's been sort of put back together again after an injury, has got this like really quite nasty looking cyborg face. And he talks to his helmet or his gun or something. He's got a computer inside his head that he calls Pooter. It's like a little conscience. It's like a Jiminy Cricket in his brain. And this, I haven't looked at him for years, but as you said it, I realized I'd quite like to have a look at Deathlock the Demolisher. So if any Marvel executives are watching this, maybe I'm the Deathlock guy.
Okay. Question 4. Are you watching or reading anything that you would recommend at this time?
Oh God. My mind's suddenly a blank. A show that I have seen recently that I think is brilliant is Jury Duty. It's a tremendously funny show. Which is for those that, do you know Jury Duty?
I don't think so.
Oh, the format itself is mesmerizing, where everyone involved in the show knows it's fictional, except for one guy who is a real person and thinks he's on a real jury. And they have to kind of build this comedy show around him. Whenever he starts suspecting that there might be something up, they manage to convince him otherwise. And it works as a comedy show. And it's got this one guy in it that doesn't know what's going on. And normally that would be an incredibly exploitative TV show, right? You'd think, oh, what a terrible thing to do to a person. It's actually the opposite. And the entire show celebrates this guy. And at the end of it, it's like the whole show is giving him a hug. And it seems to be quite a positive experience for him. I don't know if I would take it very well if I'd been put on a jury. But it's about 10 episodes long. It's an amazing show. And it's not quite like anything else.
Nice. I'll have to look for it.
I can't remember
any idea what service this is?
What it's on in America. It might be Amazon in Britain, but it might not be in America. I can't remember. It might be Paramount.
Okay.
I can't. I can't remember what platform I watched it on. I can't always remember what platforms I watched things on, for heaven's sake.
I know you. I know you mentioned Star Wars. Are you a big Star Wars fan? Sounds like you might be.
I mean, I certainly wasn't on 7, and I always kind of kept up with it. I've seen all the films in the cinema.
Hmm.
And then once we get into the expanded universe, there's some of that leaves me behind a bit.
Hmm.
Um, and of course, as it goes on, I think it gets harder and harder for people making the actual official films to do. I mean, this is like not a very controversial opinion, really, because so much lore builds up, and people spend 40 years becoming an expert on lightsabers, knowing everything from every little bit of the Star Wars universe about lightsabers. Whereas, like the first couple of films, it was just people making it up as they went along. Like they
Right.
invented new force powers for Obi-Wan Kenobi in Empire Strikes Back, or for Luke, without any explanation. They just do a new thing now, you know.
Hmm.
You can jump higher with the Force. That's not in the original Star Wars. No one jumps at all in Star Wars. You know, there's no Obi-Wan doesn't jump over Darth Vader's head or anything.
Yeah.
Force jumps.
Yeah.
But of course, when they introduce things like that in films, episode 7, 8, and 9, everybody goes, "Oh no, I think you'll find that there's no." And episodes 7, 8, and 9 are a bit of a mixed bag, as are episodes 1, 2, and 3. But I enjoy all of them.
Well, I introduced my son to Star Wars, and his takeaway point. We've started him with the original trilogy, then we
Yeah.
watched, the prequels, and then we're halfway. We're almost through the rest of the movies. I still haven't seen the last movie myself because I'm waiting for him to watch it with me.
All
But
right.
his takeaway from watching after watching the Force Awakens was sons kill their fathers.
Sons kill their
So
fathers.
yeah,
Right.
so I sleep with one. I sleep with one eye open now.
Yeah. There's two. My son noticed two things about Star Wars films that I hadn't really thought about. Which is, one is that someone always gets their arm chopped off. I mean, the amount of time someone gets their arm chopped off is unbelievable. And also, lots of the architecture, particularly of the Empire, involves building a lot of giant holes.
Hmm.
It's like that giant hole in the film 300. The Emperor's room in Return of the Jedi, his like special Emperor suite, has got this giant shaft for no reason other than to throw him down. So in the Force Awakens, there's the bit where Han Solo falls down a giant hole. And then when we come out of it, my son, who was maybe about 7 at the time and on the autism spectrum, just went, "Well, at least someone fell down a giant hole." And it turns out that's what he looks for in a Star Wars film.
Yeah.
Someone
Kind of.
plummeting down a shaft.
I think it was. I think I was listening to the. They did for the 40th anniversaries of the original trilogy. They did. It was called From a Certain Point of View, and it was like different stories, but told by different characters during the, let's say, Return of the Jedi. And there's one where these two Imperial people are talking about the need for a safety rail, next to
Yes.
the reactor.
Yeah. I know.
So
But when you see it when you're 7, you don't worry about that too much. You're just carried along with it. And what did he make of Jar Jar? Was he entertained and delighted by Jar Jar?
I don't know. I mean, he kind of lost. It was kind of hard to get him to watch the prequels. I mean, he was really into the original trilogy, which made me feel really good.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
I think
I think those are the best ones. That's not going to change, I don't think. But I
he
know there
he
was an
he
sorry.
he also kind of spoiled it for himself because at the time he was playing Lego Star Wars on his on the Nintendo, so he kind of got the gist of where things were going. So,
I once did a spoiler for myself deliberately with a video game where for years, I well into my adult life, I hadn't seen The Godfather. Right now, I'm 54, so this is in my 20s. This is in the 1990s. I found there was a particular kind of man, never a woman, always a man, that was about 7 years older than me. And whenever I said, "Oh, I haven't seen The Godfather," they would sort of be reduced to sort of spluttering consternation that how can you not have seen The Godfather? And I said, "Look, I tried to watch it on TV twice, but I fell asleep. It was on late, and nothing much was happening." "No, but you've got to watch The Godfather." And I used to really like the fact it wound people up and annoyed people. But eventually I thought, I'll watch The Godfather. But in a slightly perverse way, I decided to do it all wrong. So there was a PS2 game out at the time, which is a tie-in game with The Godfather. So I thought, right, first I'm going to play the PS2 game of The Godfather. And then I'm going to watch The Godfather. So there's a bit in a toll booth in the game, and when I watched I think The Godfather 2, and there's a bit with the toll booth. I don't remember that toll booth from the game. I knew the horse's head bit by reputation. But there's a few. It doesn't follow the films precisely, but I deliberately spoil The Godfather for myself. That's how awful I am. I'm a bad person. Bad person.
I'll talk about spoiling movies and not having seen the last Star Wars movie. I was doing a crossword on my phone, and I ruined. And I was doing well, avoiding any spoilers about Ray's heritage and stuff like that. Then it came up on. It's like, crap.
Oh no.
So, all right. Dear. Well, as we wrap up, you want to kind of give a summary about the book and why people should check it out, and where they can find you on one of the social networks if you're there.
Yes. Action Dude is a graphic novel for children between the ages of maybe about 5 and about 11. And it's about a boy who is an action hero despite having no superpowers and no skills. He just thinks he is that. And on the front of each book, it promises all thrills, all action, all the time. And that's what I try and do with jokes. That's the one. All thrills, all action, all the time. It's as high velocity as I could make it. In those few pages.
And are you on the social media, or
I am? Yeah,
avoid that.
Twitter is Andy Riley-ish. It's one of those things where when I went on Twitter, I thought, well, I may not do this again. This might be the only time I ever look at Twitter. And Andy Riley had gone. Someone else had that. So I went Andy Riley-ish. It's just ANDYRALEYISH. And then, of course, you're stuck with it. So I've been Andy Riley-ish for 15 years. And that's my Instagram handle as well, is Andy Riley-ish.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you about the Action Dude. And, I'd love to have you back some other time to talk more about Action Dude or any of your other projects.
And over the next week, I'm mostly going to be plugging the film Seize Them, which is a medieval comedy for grown-ups. About a queen who has to go on the run in her own kingdom and become a better person. And it stars Amy Lou Wood out of Sex Education and Nicola Coughlan out of Derry Girls and Bridgerton and Barbie.
Okay.
And Nick Frost.
I will definitely have to check that out if it gets across here, and I want to check out Jury Duty also.
Yeah. All right then. Well, cheers, Jan.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure, and hope to talk to you again soon.
I would love to. All right, then.
All right. Later.